A lot of organizations, the values or sometimes even the mission statements are kind of like these aspirational sentences or groups of, or set of words that communicate who we are and what we do externally. The principles, in my mind, enable that communicate, enable the delivery of those values. So the principles are much more action-based oriented. They are actionable. They are quantifiable in many ways. So they add a finer point and provide a little more direction and guidance than, say, just a value or a mission statement.
Welcome back. It's Relationships at Work, a leadership podcast helping you build workplace connection, improve culture, and avoid blind spots. I'm your host, Russell Wallaker, a communications and leadership expert, a couple of decades of experience, and a whole heap of curiosity on how we can make the workplace a better place. And that's what this is all about, right? That's what the whole intention of this show is to make the workplace better. If you got a chance, I recently released my LinkedIn newsletter. It's Raw Note. They're a little different whether you subscribe through email or through LinkedIn, but both of them really focused on the manifesto of this podcast. And if you haven't checked it out in a while, I recommend you going on LinkedIn, find me on there. And I would love to share that manifesto with you. I've already gotten some amazing feedback on it, and I hope it resonates with you as well. I think we're just going to improve leadership if we get all on side on what leadership even is. And I hope this podcast is helping clarify that a little bit more. Speaking of clarity, that's how we kicked off this 4-part conversation with Kyle McDowell. Kyle is amazing. Brilliant guy. He is a international speaker, best-selling author, leadership coach. He wrote a book that you should certainly check out called Begin With We, 10 Principles for Building and Sustaining a Culture of Excellence. And through the week, we've talked to him about definitions. We've talked to him about relationship with ourselves, relationship with our teams. And this part is wrapping up that conversation as we focus on culture. Now, if you're not familiar with what we mean by principles, he defined it really great in the Monday episode, and I really recommend you go and listen to this. But I'm going to go with the very high-level dictionary one. A fundamental truth or proposition that serves as the foundation for a system of belief or behavior or for a chain of reasoning. Shouldn't leadership lean into that? Especially if it's a good principle, if it's a valuable principle that means the world to yourself and to your teams? Shouldn't we? Well, Kyle has been really walking us through this whole principle-based leadership approach, and I loved how we wrapped it up. So join us for the rest of this conversation right now. Hold on. That really, I was going to ask, because I was curious about it, how the principles can actually help relationship building with your teams. And that's a perfect illustration of it, is it gives you a baseline from which to, and please correct me if I'm wrong, it seems like it gives you a shared foundation to build from, regardless of the timeline. Timelines might be different in how that relationship's formed, but at least it gives you a basis to build from.
It's almost like a cultural currency. And that value, and the currency has the same value if it's an intern or the CEO. But you said something just now, and then you said this is important for the principles can be a foundation or important for relationships. And then you said with your team. What I've learned, the most beautiful unintended byproduct of this whole mission that I'm on, is the impact that I'm hearing it's having on personal lives. And based on your work and what I've witnessed with you are probably at the front of the pack trying to get folks to understand you can be the same person inside and outside of work. Now, of course, there are things we don't discuss, and there's areas we don't get it. Maybe certain words we don't say. I'm not naive to that. But what I found personally is when you lead a particular way inside of an organization, a team gets to know you a certain way. And for me, this transition from the bang my fist on the desk to this principle-based guy, I started to feel like a hypocrite because I wasn't living these same principles outside of the workplace. And I thought, man, if these guys ever saw me behave this way, if I'm the guy focused on doing the right thing, I'm a hypocrite. So the short answer to your question is yes, they absolutely set a framework or a foundation for relationships, but it's not just inside the workplace. If you find yourself, if you can apply these same principles, how you treat people, how you want to be treated, the value you place on their humanity. If you there should be no line between the work and outside of work approach. I had a guy at a talk once, man. I gave a talk at Audi, all senior executives. at the end of the talk, this fella raised his hand and stands up. We were in an auditorium style setting. This guy stands up, Russell. He's like a big former Division I football player, big dude, bald head, really intimidating guy. He said, I'm paraphrasing, but he said essentially, if you read the book, or more importantly, you understand it and digest these principles, it will change your relationships with your family. As a matter of fact, it's changing how I'm raising my children. I teared up. At that moment, in front of this group of executives, I teared up standing behind this podium, and I sat back in the stool. I said, I got nothing else. I have no further value to add. And I found that to be the case in my relationships as well. So I'm glad you tipped the cap there, but I just want to take it a moment or a step deeper, because that is where real excellence is found in our existence, not just inside the workplace.
Thank you. Yeah, no, completely agree. I mean, I find it more and more interesting that we talk about leadership development, and I'm like, no, that's just personal development.
That's it.
That's just you being a better
Human
person.
That's right, man.
And I tell this story a few times where I remember going through a values exercise, because we've been through about 1 million of those at one point.
Haven't we?
And the woman, I was at a table doing it with a group of a cohort, and there was another table behind me, and this woman had values set up differently at work than she did at home.
She shared this with you?
Yeah, she shared it with the entire room.
Okay.
And she's like, is that wrong? I'm like, yes, because if your values are family, do they suddenly become not important when you turn on a computer or walk through the door? No.
Good for you.
So why are we suddenly dismissing that because you're in a work setting? Your boundaries are obviously not strong enough. Your principles are not strong enough, or you're not communicating them strong enough to the people around you. So you are becoming a different person. It's like, was it that TV show Severance? You completely are severing when you are, they talk about bring your whole self to work, and that's a whole other conversation I have challenges with. But at least you need to be true to yourself and honest with yourself, or you're going to be miserable.
Yes.
And she was not a happy colleague. And this was such a window into that. Yeah.
But man, if we agree that nobody, or very few people, and I think we'd agree, very few people come to work to be a saboteur. They're not there to sabotage, or they exist. Those people do exist. There are bad people inside of the corporate landscape. No doubt about that. But if we agree that for the most part, nobody comes to work to be a saboteur, the question we should ask ourselves, and you probably did ask her, is why do you feel the need? Why do you feel the need to have a different set of values or even principles in and outside of work? She didn't lie in bed one evening or wake up one morning and said, you know what, I want to be two different people. She was programmed that way. And most of us can relate to that. I was, which is why it was important to put the word sustain in the title of my book, because by most accounts, Russell, before I found principle-based leadership, my career was, by most standards, successful. I had a really, really good run, made more money than I ever expected to. These fancy titles, these cool corner offices with conference tables, and all the things, right? But I behaved in a way where the impact I was having was not sustainable. It's not sustainable. It didn't create the legacy I wanted to look back at and be proud of. And at some point, I actually realized those that I thought had a tremendous amount of respect for me, they didn't. They actually feared me. And that's not a good feeling. So it's not sustainable. You can have great results being a jerk. You can. But at what cost is, I think, the question to ask.
And I see people in that situation. I'm like, it's either one of two things. One, it's either you're seeing that modeled somewhere else and think that's the path to success.
That's the program.
Or you're doing it out of survival. And that you need to be a different person to survive within an environment that is obviously not healthy for you, because you can't be the person that's at home. You have to put up this mask, this facade,
right,
in order to make it through the day. And that is not a way to live either.
It is the worst way. It is. Yeah. I call it soul sucking. And then the unfortunate thing, and I heard a stat on one of your episodes, and I don't remember the exact number now, but it was about engagement and people actually wanting to be there. We've accepted it. Mm-hmm. So many of us have accepted it. I was on a plane recently, and I had my laptop open. I was heading towards the keynote, and I was going through my slides, just kind of trying to get prepared. And I could see this guy. We've all been there, right? I could see this guy starting to lean over to look at my screen. And I didn't fret finished what I was doing, closed the laptop. He said, "Hey man, what do you do?" We just had a brief conversation. And within this first 3 or 4 minutes, I share with him what I do. And his response was, "Well, I just thought that was how it's supposed to go. You go to college or not, but you get out into the workforce, you ultimately start to hate your job." He said that. And I think that is the sentiment for so many people in the workforce. And I think the data supports that. And unpacking that is a much longer conversation and probably a much tougher topic. But the point here is nobody wakes up to hate their job. They've been conditioned to hate their job. And that's not by leadership management. That's not by the label or logo on the wall. It's by people. It's by people. That's how we got there.
And thank goodness that seems to be shifting a bit generationally, because we hear a lot from your Gen Z, Gen Z for us Canadians, that they're not putting up with things that don't provide value, and they're vocal about it. They'll go on social media about it. Yeah. And then there's us, who's older generations, going, we hated meetings too. We just didn't say, no, you could say something about it. Like, that was how we were supposed to be successful. We just were drones thinking that. We didn't kick back at the status quo because that was all we knew. So there's this inspiration coming from younger generations that are saying all the things that we've wanted to say since day one, which I find really funny when we talk about the future of work. Ooh, the future of work. Oh my goodness, we need to be prepared for the future of work. I'm like, 90% of those things we've wanted for 2 decades. This is not the future of work. This is stuff we've been too scared to ask for.
Yeah, that's right.
And I feel principles is so embedded in that, because we haven't been living with principles. We've been living with productivity and monetary success.
Yeah.
As opposed to, are we the right people to, like, money is, and Simon Sinek has said this a few times, is money is the outcome. It is not it's not the goal.
Right.
And I think principles, to your point, is getting that foundational stuff to get us ready to whatever we need to do.
Well said. Agreed. Well said.
I want to wrap it up with one last question, because there's a few people probably are going, okay, this sounds great. I'll buy the book. I'll check out Kyle online. But where do I start? Do I start self-reflection? Do I write down these 10 principles and just repeat them as a mantra over and over again? Like, what do I need to do to take that first dip in the pool?
Well, don't spend money on a book until you've gone through the self-reflection that we've talked about. I think people underestimate just how difficult and the additional exponential level of effort required to transition from boss to leader. Anybody can manage. Anybody can manage, but nobody wants to be managed. We want to be led. So that self-reflection must include, do I have it in me? Is this something that is this a fight I want to have? Because sometimes it will feel like a fight. It will feel thankless. You will spend more calories and time. You must, because just managing the ins and outs and the output of the team is half the battle. Forging strong relationships and bonds and setting a vision and holding people accountable. And so many other things that go into it, that self-reflection at first is incredibly important. Now, if you've made the decision or you feel as if you're ready to take on a different approach, pick up the book, learn the values or the principles, or establish your own. Use mine as a guide, as a series, like a blueprint, if you will, and conspicuously share them with those that need to see and hear them. Usually, it's your own team if you're leading a group of people. If you're not leading a group of people, share them with anyone who will listen. Because again, there's this magnetism that starts to be created when we realize, oh my gosh, this person actually seems to care about me. They actually seem to care about the contribution that I make. They see me adding value. I feel valued because of them. I'm contributing to this team. Momentum is a hell of a thing in this domain. So take the time, have the quiet conversations with someone you trust, or do it alone in that mirror of truth environment or setting. Pick something up. Establish your principles. You don't have to buy a book to do that, but it's really helpful to have the framework, and I've actually lived it. So that's the one thing I would really try to leave your audience with is these principles are not hypothetical. They're not academic. They're quite simple. They're incredibly simple, but simple is not easy. It's not. We all know how to lose weight. We all know we got to lower our calorie intake and reduce and burn more calories. We know that. We know what to do to get from one side of a thing to another. We know what it takes to learn a second language, how to play guitar. We know how to get there. It's all, the how is all simple, but actually doing it is very difficult. So it's, just be careful how much you bite off. The worst thing you can do is start out of the gate with some huge aspirational transformation. And the first time adversity strikes, the team is like, what happened to all this principle stuff you were talking about? You're better off having done nothing at all.
I think that's a beautiful way to end this conversation. Thank you so much, Kyle, for being here. I really appreciate your time, sir.
Well, the pleasure is mine, man. And as I mentioned, I really and truly feel you're doing really important work. And if I get a chance to share the message on a platform like this, I can't say no. So thank you.
That's Kyle McDowell. He's a best-selling author, international speaker, and leadership coach. And if you haven't picked it up yet, please do. It's his book, Begin With We, 10 Principles for Building and Sustaining a Culture of Excellence. Take care, Kyle. Thank you so much, man. That's it. We're done. That is the last of our 4-part conversation with Kyle McDowell. Thank you so much to Kyle. Thank you so much to you for joining us and prioritizing your leadership journey, your leadership development. I don't know if we do that enough because, we have the most important excuse we seem to come up with, which is we don't have time. But you're bucking that. You're saying, screw it, I'm going to make the time. So thank you to you for making sure that that is something that you prioritize, because we're not going to get better as leaders until we do prioritize getting better. So that will do it for this conversation with Kyle. We're on to the next thing. Tomorrow is our second part of our 6-part series with Workhuman. I went out to Colorado, sat down with some brilliant brains out there, some speakers that I really want to introduce you to. Last week was Jason Lauritsen, and tomorrow it's going to be Devin Steele. And I look forward to you joining us in that part of the conversation. It was a lot of fun. Really enjoyed her take on a few things. We dug into prioritizing the employee experience through change. And aren't we always going through change? She helps us, think a little differently on that. So please join us tomorrow. And we're back to it next week, talking to, I believe it's, Dr. Jenna Koritz. So much good stuff. And I'm all serving it up here on a platter just for you. All right, take care of yourself, and we'll talk again soon.